Chapter 17. The courtyard was a cacophony of violence. The staccato of gunfire echoed off the concrete walls, and the acrid scent of smoke filled the air. Leah Gregorio ducked behind a rusted steel beam, her breath coming in shallow gasps as she scanned the battlefield. Resistance fighters and loyalists clashed in the open space before her, a brutal reminder that Rome was still far from free. But her mind wasn't on the battle, it was on Marcus. She had seen him make a break for the weapons cache, but then he had disappeared into the chaos. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to locate him, her gaze darting from shadow to shadow. Marcus had been a different man since the fall of Nero, fighting to rebuild the city to atone for his past sins. But now, with Luca Ferraro in the picture, everything was at risk. "Where are you?" Leah thought, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped her weapon. A shout from one of the resistance fighters drew her attention, and she saw a group of loyalists advancing from the far side of the courtyard, their weapons raised. Leah sprang into action without hesitation, moving swiftly across the battlefield as she called out orders to her team. "Push them back. We can't let them regroup." The resistance fighters rallied, their resolve hardening as they fought to hold the line. Leah rapidly moved through the chaos, her focus unyielding despite the uncertainty gnawed at her. She had to stay strong. She had to believe that Marcus was still out there, fighting to end this. But as the battle raged on, a creeping sense of dread settled over her. Marcus Vitali stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest as Luca's gun remained trained on him. The weapon barrel seemed to glint in the dim light, a cold reminder of Luca's power. But it wasn't just the gun that held Marcus captive, it was the weight of their history, the unspoken acknowledgement that they were two sides of the same coin. "I told you, Marcus," Luca said, his voice low and dangerous. "You can't escape the past." Marcus swallowed hard, his mind racing as he searched for a way out. He had known this moment would come, that Luca would force him to confront everything he had once been. But standing here now, with death staring him in the face, Marcus realized that this was more than just a battle for the future of Rome. It was a battle for his soul. "You don't have to do this, Luca," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "We can end this without any more bloodshed." Luca let out a bitter laugh, his finger hovering over the trigger. "You think that's possible? After everything we've done? After everything you've done?" Marcus's chest tightened. Luca wasn't wrong. They had both been part of Nero's corrupt regime, complicit in the suffering of thousands. But Marcus had changed. He had fought to make things right, to build something better. And now, he was willing to sacrifice everything to ensure that Luca couldn't drag the city back into darkness. "I made mistakes," Marcus said, his voice raw with emotion. "But I'm not that man anymore. I've changed." Luca's eyes narrowed, his expression twisting into a sneer. "You think you can just change? Do you think the city will forgive you? You'll always be Nero's puppet." Marcus's heart ached at the words but forced himself to stay calm. This wasn't just about him, the city, Leah, and the future they had fought so hard to secure. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Marcus said quietly. "I'm asking for a chance to make things right." For a long moment, Luca said nothing, his gaze boring into Marcus's as though searching for any sign of weakness. The tension in the air was palpable, every second stretching into an eternity. Marcus could hear the distant sounds of the battle raging in the courtyard, but here, at this moment, it felt as though time had stopped. And then, with a sudden movement, Luca raised his gun higher, his expression hardening. "You're too late." Before Marcus could react, Luca pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the air, deafening in its finality. Marcus staggered back, his breath catching in his throat as the pain ripped through him. He clutched his side, his hand coming away slick with blood, but he forced himself to stay standing, his eyes locked on Luca. Luca smirked, taking a step forward. "Looks like you're not as invincible as you thought." Marcus's vision blurred as the pain intensified, but he refused to give in. He had come too far to let Luca win now. With a surge of adrenaline, Marcus lunged forward, grabbing the barrel of Luca's gun and twisting it away from him. Luca's eyes widened in surprise, but Marcus slammed his fist into Luca's jaw before he could react, sending him staggering backward. The gun clattered to the ground, and for a moment, the two men stared at each other, both breathing heavily, both bloodied and bruised. But Marcus could see the fear in Luca's eyes now, the realization that he was losing control. "This ends now," Marcus said, his voice filled with a quiet fury. Luca sneered, wiping the blood from his mouth. "You think you can stop me? You think you can stop any of this?" Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. Instead, he stepped forward, his hand reaching for the gun between them. Luca moved to stop him, but Marcus was faster. He grabbed the weapon, raising it swiftly and leveling it at Luca's chest. For the first time, Luca looked afraid. "You're done," Marcus said, his voice cold. "It's over." Luca stared at him, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You won't do it. You don't have the guts." Marcus hesitated momentarily, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He could end this right now. One pull of the trigger and Luca would be gone, and the threat to the city would be over. But as he stared at Luca, something inside Marcus shifted. He didn't want to be that man anymore, the man who solved problems with violence, the man who killed without hesitation. Slowly, deliberately, Marcus lowered the gun. "I'm not like you," Marcus said quietly. "I won't be like you." Luca's eyes flashed with fury, but before he could react, a group of resistance fighters stormed into the courtyard, their weapons raised. Nico was at the front, his gaze flickering between Marcus and Luca as he took in the scene. "Take him," Marcus said, his voice firm. Nico nodded, stepping forward to restrain Luca, who struggled for a moment before finally going still, his expression a mix of rage and defeat. As the resistance fighters led Luca away, Marcus felt the adrenaline drain from his body, leaving him weak and unsteady. His side throbbed with pain, the wound from the gunshot burning, but he forced himself to stay standing. It was over. Luca was defeated. But the cost had been high. Leah found Marcus minutes later, her heart pounding with both relief and fear as she saw him standing in the center of the courtyard, blood staining his shirt. Her breath caught in her throat as she rushed toward him, her eyes wide with concern. "Marcus," she said, her voice trembling as she reached to steady him. "You're hurt." Marcus gave her a weak smile, wincing as the pain shot through him. "It's nothing. Just a scratch." Leah's eyes filled with tears, her hands shaking as she gently touched his wound. "Don't joke about this. You could have been killed." "I had to stop him," Marcus said softly, his gaze meeting hers. "I had to end this." Leah stared at him for a long moment, her heart aching as she saw the toll this fight had taken on him. Marcus had changed, truly changed. At that moment, Leah knew that she could trust him. That they could move forward together. "You did it," Leah whispered, her emotion-filled voice. "You stopped him." Marcus smiled, the weight of everything lifting from his shoulders. "We did it." As the sun began to rise over the city, casting a golden light over the battlefield, Marcus and Leah stood together, their hands intertwined, the future of Rome finally within their grasp. But more than that, they had found something else, a future for themselves. One built not on the past but on the hope of what would come. Chapter 18, A New Beginning. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the broken windows of the old factory, casting long shadows over the battlefield. The echoes of gunfire had faded, leaving an eerie silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city slowly coming back to life. The loyalists had been captured or scattered, their final attempt to reclaim Rome crushed by the resistance. Marcus Vitali stood in the center of the courtyard, his body heavy with exhaustion and pain. The wound Luca had inflicted still throbbed, a constant reminder of how close he had come to losing everything. But as he looked out over the city, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to think about in a long time: hope. Rome was still standing. I was bruised and battered but standing. Beside him, Leah Gregorio was quiet, her eyes fixed on the horizon as the sun climbed higher into the sky. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat, but there was a sense of calm in her expression, a peace that Marcus hadn't seen in her for weeks. The battle was over, and they could breathe for the first time since Nero's fall. "We did it," Leah said softly, her voice breaking the stillness. Marcus nodded, though his mind was still racing with what they had just achieved. "It's over." Leah turned to face him, her gaze searching his. "Is it? Is it over?" Marcus met her eyes, and for a moment, he saw the uncertainty still lingering there, the fear that, despite everything they had done, the ghosts of the past might still find a way to rise again. Marcus shared a fear, but he knew they couldn't live in that fear forever. "It's over," Marcus said again, his voice firmer this time. "We've beaten them, Leah. Nero's gone. Luca's gone. The city is ours now."